Hello and welcome to Dawn Chorus Writes, a miraculous ladybug fanfiction and audio fiction. This is a special one-shot, I'll Never Let You Fall, written by Shika, narrated by Dawn, myself, hello, and is done for Lady Noir July. So I hope you enjoy. Massive shout out to Shika, all her information is down below, go and send her some love. Massive shout out and a thank you to Treble Clef for the use of her beautiful emotional artwork in the thumbnail. Make sure you go and send her some love. All her information is down below. Go and check out her beautiful emotional art. It is stunning. Make sure you send me some love by smashing that like button. Comment down below what you think of it, and make sure you subscribe so you do not miss out on other one-shots that are happening and other series that are happening at this moment. And I hope you enjoy. I'll Never Let You Fall. Ladybug Marinette's POV. It had been a rough day. School, a chemistry test, Lila being Lila, and yet another day of not being able to talk to Adrian. You would think after 3 years I would have grown out of this, but no. I'm still stammering, stumbling Marinette, the class klutz and Adrian's good friend. It didn't help that they had more homework getting ready for the final year exams, and the school counsellors were having everyone write essays on the decision about their futures. And if that wasn't enough to stress her out, then an Akuma alert went off just as she was getting started on the mountain of homework assigned that day. Shadow Moth was getting more calculated and creative as the years went on, and today's Akuma had been no exception. Banshee was a singer who had lost out on a solo she had been practicing for ages. She would give out piercing shrieks that would break up buildings and roads into flying rubble, but it was her song that was the worst. She enthralled anyone who heard it, and if Ladybug's lucky charm hadn't been earmuffs, then they would have never reached the lapel pin and released the Akuma. The fight had ran her and Cat ragged all over the city, and when everything was set right once more, Ladybug collapsed on the rooftop they happened to be standing on. "My lady, are you hurt?" Cat asked, panting for breath as his ring beeped a warning. "No, I'm fine, Cat. Just a really long day." "You too, huh?" He flopped down next to her, laying against the tiles warmed by the afternoon sun. "Cat, you're going to change back soon," she chilled. "You too." "True enough." "Okay, but don't make a habit of this." She lay down, facing away from him, and watched the red-green light swirl around them. "Jeez!" Plaid groaned dramatically from somewhere behind her, but Tiki only rolled her eyes and accepted the cookie she was offered. "Here, buddy," Cat's voice said, sounding just as tired as she felt. They lay there in silence for a long time. "Are you sure you're okay?" he asked quietly. His voice was soft and almost familiar. Nope, she wasn't going there. He didn't have the energy for it today anyway. "Yeah, I'm just so tired. Finals are coming up, and graduation, and university, this whole hero thing is bad enough while I'm in high school. How am I going to be able to make this work in a difficult program like mine? Not to mention leaving behind friends and..." She couldn't finish the thought. The words, "leaving Adrian," ran brokenly in her heart. "Yeah, it can be pretty lonely right now, huh?" "You, really? You always seemed like you would be the life of the party." "Nothing but the freedom of the mask, my lady," his voice said, sounding wistful and sad. "I'm not nearly as free as in my civilian life as I would like to be." Why didn't he ever tell her he was lonely? That would explain his sad Kitty on the Roof song. No wonder he wanted to spend more time with her. She should have known. "Tiki, spots on," she whispered. "Claws out." She sat up and pulled her knees to her chest. She glanced over at him, seeing the sad expression on his face. Are you okay, Cat? She asked softly. He sat up as well and gave her one of his lopsided grins, though she noticed it didn't reach his eyes. I guess. Long day, but things are changing, or not changing enough, and I just... I don't know. He ran a distracted hand through his hair. I know the feeling. You're not going through it alone, Cat. I know, but my friends are all moving on, and I'm still stuck here where I've been, and I can't stand the thought of losing them, especially someone in particular. She reached over and gave his hand a squeeze. Well, I'm not going anywhere. It's not like I could go and study abroad and still be here to fight Akumas, could I? I guess not, he sighed. It's just that I remember what my life before being Cat Noir was like. It was all faraway dreams and locked doors. Never being able to choose for myself and feeling lost, like no one cared about the real me. And then I found the ring, and Plagg was my first real friend, and then you came. He turned her hand and idly traced the dots across the back of her glove. Then you came into my life, literally, like a bolt out of the blue. Thanks for reminding me. I can't believe I crashed into you on our first day, she groaned. His fingers gave hers a little squeeze before letting them go. I never thought it was anything but cute, truth be told, he said with a smile. You were afraid to fall, and I was afraid to be free, but still aching for freedom. Yeah, I've always been my worst enemy, she sighed, feeling the weight of her mistakes, especially the ones she made with him. But you? That isn't what you see, is it? He shook his head, a sad look in his panther eyes. I admit, I put you on a pedestal for a while, LB. It took you throwing me away to get some sense knocked into me, I guess. I mean, I knew you were just another person, someone like me, stuck doing a thankless job for the good of the strangers, and that you sometimes overreacted and made mistakes, but I chose never to look at that too closely. I'm sorry if my expectations were too hard on you. I never meant them to be. No, what happened between us? That wasn't your fault. I mean, there were some things you could have done differently, but this is mostly on me. If I can ask, milady, why now? What do you mean? You're talking about personal stuff. You never do that. She turned her head up to the sky, letting the last golden sunlight warm her and glow behind her closed eyes. It took a time to realize that I couldn't do it by myself. I never felt that just me by myself was enough. Then I became the guardian, and things started to spiraling, and I found myself pushing everyone away, trying to keep everyone safe, trying to be strong all by myself. It didn't work, Cat. It nearly broke me. He stared at her for a long moment and then pulled her into a hug. I'm sorry, little bug. I wish you had told me. I would have helped however I could. But that's the problem, you see. I needed you safe. You're my partner, my strength, but also my weakness. You've always said I was so strong and confident, but I have so many weaknesses, Cat. You and Adrien are my two biggest ones. I needed you saved, but I did it all wrong. She heard him gasp, and he released her. Adrien? Is that the... No, please, forget that I said anything, Cat. Please. I can't, my lady. Not if it's important to you, which this is. Tell me about it. She swallowed nervously as her cheeks burned. I've been in love with him for a long time now. The crazy thing is I can barely talk to him without this stupid mask, and he loves someone else anyway, so it's not like it matters. She sniffed. Even if it had worked out, I probably still would have messed things up. without the suit, I'm just...
Madly clumsy?
He supplied, a hint of laughter in his voice. She looked up at him. His eyes were shining in a ruddy glow, and his smile was wide and full of tenderness. She blushed as red as a mask. Yeah.
Let me guess, he said softly, thoughtfully. It's like there's no gravity when you're next to him, yet nothing to keep you from falling too. Everything just gets jumbled up, and you're so afraid he'll reject you that whenever you say anything that could be confused as a confession, you backtrack.
Ladybug stared at him, her mind running in confused circles. Yeah, but how could you know that about me? You couldn't.
It doesn't matter, he said suddenly, shifting mental gears. Sorry, I interrupted. You were saying?
She cast him a look, wondering where all that had come from. Okay, I just meant that I couldn't lose you or him. You both always break my fall. You when I'm Ladybug and Adrien in my civilian life. It's like...
A parachute? He asked with a grin. Like the day you dived off the tower to save that girl.
She bit her lower lip and nodded. I need both of you. When I'm Ladybug, you're my partner. When I'm just me, Adrien is kind of the star by which I steer. You are the two main pillars that are holding me up and keeping me grounded in the midst of this craziness. I need that. I need you. And I need Adrien too. Even if he never sees me. Even if all I am to him is a friend.
Oh, I doubt that, my lady.
The sun was below the horizon now, with the ruddy glow lighting the sky, but could not hide the pink tinges to his cheeks. But even that isn't enough anymore, Cat. I feel so overwhelmed. This is a stressful time of life, as it is, graduating university, planning for the future, leaving friends. But here we are, dealing with all that, and we are still fighting the Akumas with no end in sight. Are we supposed to give up our futures for this? Our hopes? Our dreams? Even thinking about it makes me feel all weightless, like there is nothing left to hold on to. And I can barely breathe.
I know the feeling, he murmured. Remember Bubbler? You have always been there to break my fall.
She grunted and shook her head. You're just saying that to make me feel better.
Can I tell you a secret? He asked, eyes pleading. She nodded glumly.
I've got enough of them. What's one more, right?
He pulled her close and whispered in her ear, I would never lie to you, Marinette.
She gasped and pulled back to stare at his gentle smile. What? No! What are you?
Cat shook his head. You gave me one piece too many, princess. You have always been there for me, even when you didn't know it. Being with you, fighting at your side, is what I have always wanted, and now, after what you've just told me, it all begins to make sense.
Her mind was in a panic. She hadn't intended to let him know who she was. What should she do now? Really, Cat, She was startled by a clawed finger on her lips.
It's no good denying it, Marinette. No one else makes sense. It has to be you.
Ladybug deflated, knowing there was no way she could get out of it this time. Then you must know me in my civilian life, aside from the few times you visited me?
He nodded. I owe so much to you, princess. You have been there for me whenever I asked since we first met. You taught me about feeling okay, being in my own skin, and that I can be me, and that is enough no matter what anyone else thinks. Being around you has always made me feel so alive. Like if we are together, then anything is possible. It's us against the world, and it always has been, even without the masks.
Her head ached, as if she was straining to remember something from long ago, something she could feel the shape of but couldn't grab onto. That doesn't make sense. I'm not. He held her tightly.
Marinette, you were everything to me. I could tell you how much I wanted you to be my lady, but I don't think you'd believe me. Just please, please, don't send me away now.
Oh, Cat, of course not. She wrapped her arms around him and held him just as tightly as he was. Didn't I just tell you I needed you? And they sat there in silence, holding each other. She breathed him in, the scent of leather, allspice, and something undefinable, familiar and yet elusive. Finally, he lifted her face to meet his glowing green eyes.
How do you need me, Marinette? As just a partner? Friend?
He leaned in, searching her face, though for what she didn't know, except that his eyes lingered longest on her lips. If he had called her Ladybug, she would have brushed it off, but he had asked Marinette, and it didn't feel right to push him away. Not here. Not now. I don't know.
Would it help if you didn't have to choose?
He asked in a whisper. His nose brushing against hers caused her to tremble. But what? How? I don't know what you mean.
Adrien, he's Buttercup, isn't he?
She blushed furiously and he chuckled.
I thought so. Marinette, all this time you've been turning me down because you love Adrien?
She tensed and pushed him lightly on the shoulder. Oh, come on, Cat! You turned down Marinette for the hope of Ladybug, remember? He held her firmly by the shoulders, watching her closely.
And you have no idea how much I regretted having to do that. I take it you only did that because I caught you on the balcony, right? After you transformed?
She sighed and her cheeks hurt from blushing so much. It's the only thing I could think of after all your silliness. His smile widened to a Cheshire grin.
Really, Marinette? The only thing you, Ladybug, could think of was to declare that you were in love with me?
Figuring out a lucky charm is generally easier for me than dealing with guys. Besides, my father was akumatized over it. I learnt my lesson the hard way.
You never answered my question,
he murmured, his eyes boring into hers.
What if you didn't have to choose?
I'm not sure what you mean. Why was her heart beating so fast? It was only Cat. Her head ached again, a stab between her temples, and the scent teased her, just out of reach. He sighed ruefully.
Wow, never thought I'd be the one to figure it out first. Probably the quantum masking, either that or... His eyes narrowed shrewdly. Does my everyday Ladybug just not want to know?
Her eyes widened in shock.
No, it can't be. You can't be. Adrien?
His name was barely a whisper, but he heard it and smiled.
Nice to meet you, Bugaboo.
She stared at him and then leaned back and crossed her arms. Prove it.
Okay, close.
She slapped a hand over his mouth before he could de-transform. His eyes smiled at her across her fingers, and she felt him kiss her palm. Tell me something only Adrien would know about Marinette, she demanded, removing a hand from his mouth.
You pretended to be in love with my statue at the Wax Museum, he said promptly. You nearly kissed me. I backed away, saying that eternity seems like a long time, and...
His voice trailed off, and he flushed darkly in the gathering dusk. You weren't pretending that day, were you? Ginger snaps. She had really put her foot in it this time. Cat really was Adrien. And now... He knew that she had been in love with him all this time, including that embarrassing day at the Wax Museum 3 years ago. Ladybug groaned and hid her face in her hands, turning away from him. "No!" he whispered fiercely, grabbing her elbow, pulling her round to face him once more. "I'm sorry, Marinette. I didn't mean to hurt you, ever. I promise. I wanted you to like me so much, even back then, that the thought of you not liking me kind of pushed me to do that stupid prank to begin with. If you weren't pretending like you said, what were you doing?" She took a wavering breath. "Oh, I was trying to psych myself up to tell you how I felt about you, but I saw you and I thought that the statue and I figured that I would get all goofy stuff out of my system so I wouldn't be so nervous and mess it up." He chuckled softly and caressed her cheek with a fond smile on his face. "That's not so bad. I have regretted that I didn't let you kiss me that day for years, Marinette. It's nothing to be that embarrassed about." She glared at him now. "It turns out I had posters of Cat Noir all over my room for several years, and I made a doll of Adrien Agreste and slept with it in my bed. I have made a total fool of myself over you for the last 3 years, and you've seen it on both sides of the mask. How could you not think I'm some kind of obsessive freak?" Tears of mortification welled up in her eyes now, and he sobered instantly, pulling her into a comforting hug. "You know those limited edition, fully articulated Ladybug and Cat Noir action figures? The ones that sold out in the first 24 hours of release?" She sniffed and nodded. "I got a set and I would play act dates between us. Sometimes I even had them kiss," he whispered, blushing furiously. "So at least we're both obsessive freaks together." "How are we going to sort out all of this?" she asked softly. He sighed, rubbing her back between her shoulder blades. "I know that this life of ours right now isn't going to be perfect. We are probably going to have some rough bits as we figure out where Cat meets Adrien and Ladybug meets Marinette, but I believe the ups and downs are going to be worth it, as long as I'm with you. The rest we can work out when it comes up." She shivered at the snarled mess they had been all this time. "I just don't know. I feel like I'm standing at the edge of a cliff and it's just a long way down." "Are you afraid of me, Marinette?" he whispered, his voice sad and distant. "No!" She took his face in her hands and made him meet her eyes. "That was never an issue, Adrien. I tend to stress and worry, you know that." "Yeah, it's just, and I second guess myself all the time, especially when it comes to you. I wasn't kidding when I said that you were my weakness. And you have always been mine, Marinette. That first day at school, I thought you were so beautiful, and it hurt that you hated me for a simple misunderstanding. I wanted to do anything I could to make things right, to make you like me. If Cat hadn't met Ladybug first, I would have spent all these years pursuing you. As it was, I just couldn't bear to let you go." "Really?" She couldn't help her voice squeaking, but it didn't seem important just then. "Why? Why would you even think of me that way?" "You really don't know how amazing you are, do you?" he marveled. "Marinette, you are the most talented, ambitious, caring, selfless person I know, and that is ignoring the fact that you're Ladybug. The truth is, I never thought that I, as Adrien, was good enough for you." "What? Are you crazy?" This was too much. Adrien didn't think he was good enough for her. She was torn between anger at his father for letting him grow up without love and appreciation, at herself for not seeing how deeply Cat needed connection and reassurance, and at the world for stealing the smile from his heart. She frowned at him and poked a finger hard at his chest. You listen here, silly cat. You are the kindest, sweetest, most supportive, most forgiving, hard-working, caring person I know. You are everything I ever wanted, even without the mask. I could care less about you being famous or your father or your crazy schedule. It is you I love. The boy who apologized for something that wasn't his fault and gave his umbrella to the girl who seemed to hate him. And if you ever say you aren't worthy again, I'll... Kat pulled her in and kissed her. Kat was Adrian. Adrian was kissing her desperately, passionately, possessively, as if it was all too much and she was the only one who could set his world to rights. Her mind went blissfully blank, and every fear of being unloved, unwanted, unworthy herself were washed away in the rush of heat that left her burning. Ladybug was so overwhelmed by his kiss and lack of air that she swayed when he finally released her, but his hands on her face grounded her, as if he always did. You better be ready to catch me if you ever let me go now, she breathed, still stunned. What makes you think I'll ever let you go? He purred, his eyes so full of love that her heart ached in response. She grinned and tapped his nose. Necessity for one, silly cat? He slid his hand down her shoulders to her waist and squeezed her tight. Have I ever told you you're beautiful when you're angry? That depends on who's doing the telling. Is it Adrian or Kat? Does it matter? He whispered into her hair, his lips brushing her temple, making her tremble. I'm not sure it ever did, she murmured. But if you keep kissing me like that, my feet might never touch the ground again. Then it wouldn't be the first time we flew in the moonlight, he said, gesturing at the moon that now shone down on them. I love you, Marinette. I will always be there to catch you. And I'll always let you, my kitty. He pulled her in again, but this time the kiss was gentle and slow. It was a promise that everything he had told her was truth that couldn't be denied. It was a promise she returned with a whole heart. Thank you for listening to I'll Never Let You Fall, a lyrical based on the song Parachute. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you smash that like button if you did. It really does help with the channel. Make sure you go and send Shika some love for writing it, and make sure you comment down below what you thought of it, and make sure whilst you're there press the subscribe button so you do not miss out on other one-shots and other series that are happening at the moment. You really do not want to miss out on them, and I hope you are good, and I will speak to you soon. Bye.